Now it falls to me to introduce Kevin, to rejoice in Kevin, really. And there's going to be an awful lot of rejoicing in Kevin over the next few weeks because he goes off to be ordained next month already, because we are in April. And that is something he and we have been anticipating for a little longer than we expected. It was delayed a year ago. First thing I have to say about... Have I been saying Declan? Have I been doing it again? No, I didn't say... I have. You'll soon discover why. I'm not the only one who does this. I sometimes interchange the names Declan and Kevin, and that's because Kevin's a dear friend, but he and Declan and I were together as a group for a year or so before I was ordained, pursuing our joint preparation for ordination, and we continued together for some time afterwards as their preparation continued. And that's something I don't think the three of us will ever forget. And busy though he is now, we don't meet in quite that intense context anymore. But though he is busy as manager of the centre, we do meet regularly, and he makes the time for that. I feel that I can say anything to Kevin, and I hope and believe that he feels the same. And that's quite something if you think of the difference in our ages, for one thing. Not as strange inside the Sangha as it would be outside, but I spent most of my life outside the Sangha, and I'm still bowled over by the strangeness and by the wonder of that. Those chats are marked by many things, not in any particular order of importance, but it is significant, I think, that the first thing that occurs to me, and it's not something I would have predicted, is his sense of fun. I've talked about the importance of lightness, and it's a very important ingredient in Kevin's makeup and in his going for refuge. And it's part of his armoury of strengths as he pursues this. There's also his intellect, which makes him not only a wonderful student of the Dharma, which he is, a very impressive student of the Dharma, but also, as I've discovered, and as we've discovered together, I think he discovered it at the same time as I did, or simultaneously with me, a great reader and appreciator of poetry. And of course, it's the same qualities in him, or some of the same qualities, that make for that. He is fiercely, sometimes disarmingly, honest, and thanks to that honesty, I've been privileged to be aware of some of the challenges that life has thrown his way as he prepared for this big step in his life. And I've been all the more bowled over, impressed, gobsmacked by the calm courage with which he overcame those challenges. Being accepted for ordination, as you may or may not know, is a matter of having your going for refuge witnessed by the order and found to be effective. And Kevin's certainly has. There's nobody I know who more clearly embodies that effective commitment to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha than Kevin does. And I, and I'm sure others, have learned from him in that respect. I'm one of many in the order who are really, really looking forward to having him on board, and I'm really looking forward to what he has to say now. Come on, Kevin.
Thank you so much. It's I'm realizing now how hard it is to go second after two amazing rejoicings and an amazing talk from Dolores, because I'm just like emotionally like, oh my God. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit overwhelmed at the minute. So Thank you, Daisagar, and thank you, Dolores, for that. It's really great. I'm going to do a quick timer just so I don't go way off track. So I'm going to present 3 vignettes this evening. I'm doing this because I felt like if I tried to say if I tried to give the whole sort of arc of my spiritual life, I'd be at risk of trying to say everything and saying nothing. But rather, I want to take 3 kind of significant moments throughout my life, not just as a Buddhist, that I think will give a sense of why it is I am a Buddhist. So I'm going to start. So we're going to go back to 2008, and I'm living in Cork City. I'm 20 years old, living in Cork City, and I'm studying fine art in the Crawford College of Art and Design. About 2 years earlier, I discovered I'm really into classical music. So I particularly was into choral classical music, and particularly the choral music of J.S. Bach, who I'm sure you've heard of. And Bach's choral music is all sort of religious. It's all Christian music. And it was Easter. So it was actually around this time, this time of year in 2008. It might have even been Good Friday, because I was going to a concert that was held in the Cork City Hall, which was called St. John's Passion. So it's the story of the crucifixion and put to music. I'd never been to anything like this in my life. I was 20 years old. I'd listened to this stuff on records or CDs, but I've never been to this sort of concert. So I was actually really nervous. I went alone. I didn't have any friends who liked that kind of thing. And I brought down the average age by quite a significant amount at that concert. I bought a suit especially. I'd never owned a suit. So I bought a suit especially for this event. It didn't quite fit. It was my first suit, so it didn't quite kind of. It was a bit baggy actually, and I kind of knew that. And but so I went to this event feeling quite awkward and nervous and by myself, and going into this great big hall full of people that, to my sort of mind, were sort of just very, very. How would you say? Just kind of like I was just a bit awestruck with this sort of caliber of people that were going to this concert. Oh my goodness. And I sat down in my seat and the music started. And it hit me like a tidal wave. I felt completely shattered by the inconceivable beauty and sublimity of what I was experiencing. The waves of voices, one swelling upwards as the other plummets downwards, and musical notes for a brief moment on their journey past each other harmonize. They're going their respective journeys to different places, but suddenly they relate to each other in some sort of way. There's a space between 2 notes, and that space created in me such a strong emotional response that I was just totally moved to tears. I spent most of the concert crying, basically, just because I couldn't conceive of something being so beautiful. And I've just been fascinated by harmony since, the relationship between 2 discrete sounds that had the power to move me to tears. So I was just fascinated by it. And from this, I became sure that there was something beyond the mundane, everyday aspects of life. I knew that this piece of art was giving me a glimpse of something totally transcendental. I wasn't a Buddhist at the time, so all I could kind of label it was with the word God. But what was kind of interesting was after the concert, I didn't feel good. I felt broken. I felt shattered by the experience. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know the next steps. I wanted to give my entire being to this beauty I just experienced. But I didn't know how. So I ended up kind of suffering a bit from that. It kind of perpetuated my sort of love-hate relationship with Catholicism as well. But that did end some years later. So that was my experience when I was 20 years old down in Cork. And that's had quite a profound effect on my spiritual life. But let's jump forward to the next section. So I'm 26 years old, and I'm at the International Convention. This is in May 2014. These conventions are a bit like what's happening tomorrow, actually. It's a worldwide gathering, but obviously it's physical. It happens physically as opposed to online. A worldwide gathering of people across Sri Ratna from all levels in one place, usually in the UK. And this was in Adistana, in the first ever international gathering in Adistana in the UK. This is the retreat center that is hosting the events tomorrow. And it's often called the muddy one. There's been a lot of these international gatherings. This is the muddy one. It never stopped raining. And most people camp for this. So it's not exactly comfortable. So you have around 300 very wet and tired retreatants at this event. And I was very lucky because I was traveling from Ireland, and they gave priority to people traveling to have a dorm in the main building. So I was quite lucky in that sense. I didn't need to camp. Vajrashura and Sadayasi and a few others weren't so lucky. I'd never been at a Sri Ratna event outside the Dublin Buddhist Centre, so this was sort of a big deal for me. Even though I was living in the men's community, so I was quite involved. You know, I was a mitra by this stage, and yeah, I'd never been in a puja with more than 25 people, I think, which would have been around the amount on retreat. So to go from like 25 people to in or around 300, I think, had quite an effect on me. Actually, it had some of the most significant moments of my life, in a way. So I think it was the second evening of it, and it was in a big, massive marquee full of the retreatants with a shrine in the middle. So it wasn't sort of against the wall. And the reason for that is you can walk around it. It's called, in Buddhism, we call it a circumambulation. You have the shrine to your right, and you walk around keeping the shrine and the Buddha statue or rupa to your right. So it was the part of the ritual where people were chanting the Buddha Shakyamuni mantra. That might be incorrect, but that's what my memory is. And as everyone circumambulated the shrine, the rupa in the middle was made out of sandstone. It's this beautiful sandstone rupa, about slightly bigger than life size. Really, really beautiful statue. And I was sitting in my spot and watching all the crowds just chanting and circumambulating, walking around this beautiful shrine. And I felt like there was a gravity almost pulling me towards it. So I went up to make an offering. But as I made an offering of light, I felt this emotional stirring in me. I didn't quite know what it was, but I said, okay, I'll just keep going. And I was still a bit awkward about all this stuff at this stage, about kind of making offerings and all that kind of thing. But I put the candle offering, the offering of light, onto the shrine and bowed. And as I did so, the statue, the rupa, was no longer made of sandstone. It became real. I mean, I don't mean this literally, but for me, it was as if it was real. much like Pengya, he felt like the Buddha was always with him. I imagine my experience here was what Pengya experienced all the time. So the statue came alive, no longer made of stone, nor was he made of flesh, but rather he was made of reality itself. And not only that, it felt like he was the center of the universe, not just the center of this circumambulation, but the center of everything. And everything in the universe was revolving around it. The devotion that kind of came up in me in response to this was so immense. All I could do was just stay bowing. And suddenly it felt like as if my entire life had altered. The path I envisaged, my future being, exploded into a vast horizon of possibility. Soon that just faded away. It was again made out of sandstone. Again, it was only the center of the circumambulation. But my resolve remained. I felt like I had to give my life to this. So the next day, on a walk with Vajrashura, I asked for ordination. Okay, so the last vignette, we're going to fast forward again. This time we're in Norwich in the UK, in Padmaloka, the retreat centre for men training for ordination. It's October 2016. I'm on the Bodhisattva Ideal Retreat. And I've been training for ordination now for about 2 years. It was about day 5 of 7 on the retreat. And what I noticed was different about this is I was making lots of connections with other retreatants in a way that I'd never done before. It seemed quite easy. I usually felt like I had to make a lot of effort to make friends, really. But it was becoming much easier. There was a strange mix-up with the dorms where I misread it. Rather, they put my name down twice, and I only saw my name on the first time. I didn't realize it was down twice, and I ended up going to the wrong room. So it ended up being in a dorm with 7 men in it, which is not usual. But it was a busy retreat. I just went, oh, well, this is the way it is. But I immensely enjoyed it. I immensely enjoyed the routine, the work tasks we had to do. I wasn't getting caught up in the, oh, I need to meet this order member so that I can get ordained, or, I was just enjoying my being there. I was loving the study group, and I was just really enjoying getting on with things. On this evening, the day 5 of 7, I was having dinner with 2 other retreatants. And they said they invited me to go on a walk with the 2 of them after dinner. And that's quite controversial, to go on a 3-person walk when you're on a retreat. Generally, it's the standard 2-person kind of walk around. So I was like, what? 3 people? What? Oh, that's very odd. But I was like, okay. They were like, no, there's somewhere we want to go in particular. So I was like, okay. So we went for a walk after dinner down to a playground, which I never knew existed, very close to the retreat center. And we went on the swings. And it was some of the most wholesome fun I've ever had in my life, just being on this very, very, very positive, but yet intensive retreat, to be broken by going on these swings where you're just going up and down, the other person's going up and down, and just this simple thrill and innocence of it. I just couldn't stop laughing. And it was a bit giddy, and we went back to the retreat center a bit giddy for having been on the swings. And it did take us a while once we got back to the retreat center for the energy to calm down. But we did calm down, and I went and I did my puja, which I adored, and I went to bed that night. But I couldn't sleep. I was in bed by 10:15, and I noticed the gentle snoring of a man, or maybe 2 men, in the room out of all the other 6 men. And I was aware that if I moved, the guy in the bunk above me would feel the effect of that movement. And yet, even though, oh, it's my time up, even though I knew that this wasn't very comfortable, it's not the most comfortable position I've ever been in my life. But yet I can't get to sleep. The reason why? I just had the biggest smile on my face. And I just was thinking to myself, have I ever been happier? So I hope these vignettes communicate something of why I am a Buddhist, why I go for refuge to the Three Jewels. And yeah, I hope they speak for themselves in a way, so I'll say no more. So thank you, everyone.